that's going to be the goal for these. I have an alternate plan. I'm kind of excited about it. Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather, and believe it or not, spring has sprung pretty much in our area, even though we're only at the end of January. It's forecasted that we're gonna have some really warm temperatures through February, and usually after that in our area, we're pretty much good. It's not that we won't get the rogue freeze every now and then, but in general, they're not very deep freezes. So things like trees and some of our perennials, like our asparagus and our tulips, are even starting to come up. So it's really time to start thinking about gardening season, even though it's a little bit early for that. So a few weeks ago, I started our spring garden. All of the starts that I have down here are frost tolerant. I have broccolis, cauliflowers, kales, cabbages, and I'm really excited about this garden season. Now these plants have outgrown their tiny little start pots here. One of the things I noticed is that some of the plants seem really stunted, kind of. So some of the plants sort of grew to a certain point and then they stopped. And I put a little bit of fertilizer in the water when I watered them, and it didn't do a whole lot, which tells me that they're starting to get choked out at the roots. So see here, we have a lot of root growth coming out from the bottom of the pot, and this is a really telltale sign that the plants need much more space. So I've got some bigger pots and we're gonna get these guys potted up today. In ideal conditions, I would just take them straight out of these trays and put them in the garden, but my garden isn't quite ready for them. Plus, I do still want to protect them a little bit from what may be a little bit of snow and ice coming up. So rather than put them in the garden and subject them to those elements right away, what I really want to do is actually acclimate them to be able to handle outdoor temperatures, because I've had these guys in my house under lights, so they've had kind of a stable, consistent temperature that is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and they haven't seen anything colder. I don't exactly want to thrust them out into the cold. Even though it's not very cold, it still can impact them. So potting them up and being able to put them in the greenhouse here and have them acclimate a little bit slower, that's going to be better for them in the long term. So these are the size pots that I'm going to be potting them up into. These pots are from Bootstrap Farmer and I absolutely love them. It took me a couple years to bite the bullet and buy really nice Bootstrap Farmer pots, but I'm really glad that I did this. We struggled for a long time with those really flimsy pots, the really flimsy pots that come in trays from the big box store, and they don't do it for me. They break down really fast. So these guys are awesome. And I am running a little bit low on soil, but it's not a big deal because there is no shortage of rabbit manure around here. And especially for seedlings, rabbit manure is a really, really excellent thing for the garden. So as you can see here, this rabbit manure does have a little bit of a dusty type coating to it, and that's part of what benefits the garden. So there's actually a big long name for this fungus that's growing on the rabbit manure, and this fungus actually really benefits the plants because what it does is it breaks down what's in the manure and makes it bioavailable to the plants straight away. So think of it kind of like a fermented food, except for your plants. So regular green beans, they're good for you, right? There's nothing wrong with green beans all by themselves, and they'll nourish your body well. But if you ferment the green beans, you don't only get those initial benefits from the green beans, but you get the benefits from that fermentation, because the fermentation bacteriums and things do a lot of work and help in breaking down that food for you and making more of those nutrients bioavailable to your gut. And they also add in their own nutrients and things as well. So it's really similar to that. So actually what I'm gonna do is take each little cup here, each little pot, fill about 1/3 of the way with the rabbit manure, place my start, and then surround it with fresh soil. The plants over on this side, they're just as bad, just as eager to get out of these little cell trays. Cute little broccoli here, ready to be potted up. One of the benefits to potting these plants up is right now all the plants are pretty close together, and some of the smaller starts are getting shaded out by some of the bigger starts. So this little guy is a little bit smaller than some of the other broccoli plants, but he's gonna be just fine.
When I wake, I know
So these little greenhouses within the greenhouse are pretty much used as storage most of the year, but this time of year I actually use them for their intended purpose. So in theory, the cover that you can put over your plants, like a greenhouse, like cold frame, something like that, that cover effectively transports you to the next growing zone, or the next warmest growing zone. So we're growing in zone 7B here. So in theory, with the sides down on our greenhouse, this greenhouse transports the plants inside it to zone 8. And if you add another layer on top of that, you should be able to be transported to the next zone warmer, like zone 8B. So I don't know exactly how true that is, but I do know that we've had a lot of success in keeping our seedlings as warm as they need to be by using this method. Now, I would not risk this with my frost tender varieties like tomatoes and peppers, but for something that can handle a little bit of frost, this is a really great way for me to acclimate the plants to the outdoors without having to babysit them and bring them into the house at night and put them back out during the day. I'm able to kind of utilize both layers of protection to protect them when needed. Now, when they're acclimated to the outside, I don't have to worry about them at all, but going from 70 straight down into 30 is going to affect them if they're not protected. So I'm going to zip this guy shut. I'm going to close down the sides of the greenhouse, and they're going to be here overnight. I like to try to get my frost tolerant stuff out in the raised bed garden by around Valentine's Day, because that's when I've got my spring and summer starts, the seeds going into the same trays and occupying the same space. And that time is only a few weeks away from now, and by then they will have probably very nearly outgrown those little pots. So my green stalk here, this was in here during that really cold Arctic blast that we got, and I did notice that some of the strawberries that were coming back, some of them did die. So I have a few little strawberry plants hanging on, but regardless, even if I didn't have the strawberries in here, I want to continue watering this, because the soil inside this green stalk, inside any container, is still a living thing, and all living things need water. So I'm going to get this watered and I guess count our dead, because I'm going to be needing to place our strawberry order really soon. We have grown strawberries from seed before. It's actually not hard. They grow really fast and they do fruit really well the first year most of the time. But it's really easy to find strawberry crowns online, and they're pretty inexpensive, and it's kind of nice to get that little bit of a jump on the seasons, because strawberries do produce more in subsequent years for about 4 to 5 years. So even though strawberries do generally yield pretty well their first year, they yield better in subsequent years. So you can get a jump on that harvest by ordering crowns instead of growing from seed. But by seed is definitely more economical, that's for sure. Yeah, this one is alive here, but a lot of them, they were growing pretty well, but they're basically or entirely dead. I think part of the issue with these strawberries in here was the fact that they are in a container. In general, plants that are in the ground, their roots are more well protected. These guys only had a little bit of space between the outside of the container and the root system, and it did a lot of those strawberries in. But the strawberries that are in the raised bed garden are actually doing really well. Hello.
Hello.
How goes it in here?
It's going. I'm just trying to get these doors adjusted.
So how does one adjust a door?
Oh goodness, that's a whole video.
It's complicated.
Too many different variables.
Give me the gist. Are you shimming that up so that it sits?
What I'm doing right now is filling the old screw holes, because this is a repurposed door.
Okay.
Filling the old holes with wood so that the new screws can actually bite and hold the hinge without just spinning around.
Okay. So it's a slight mess right now because we're in the middle of trying to figure out how to organize it, but this shed is really awesome. So the strawberries that are over here in the raised bed garden, they don't look like much right now, but there is a lot of life in here. I've noticed ever since the freeze especially that there's been a lot more green popping up. And last year, I think I only put in probably less than 12 plants, and throughout the course of the year, they put out their shoots or their pups. There's a name for it. Basically, they can procreate by seed, strawberries can, but they usually will put out runners. That's what they're called. And basically they have a little vine that comes out of the center of the crown or the side of the crown, and a little pup or baby strawberry plant is at the end of that little vine, and the little plant will put down its own set of roots. And strawberries can spread really far by doing that. I've actually heard of people getting pretty annoyed with invasive strawberries, and I don't understand it. That does not sound like a problem to me. See, I'm pretty sure that I didn't plant this one. That one was from a runner. And I noticed that there's even a strawberry in the walkway here. See? I definitely didn't plant that there. The last time we took a peek in the garden, I did notice that there was one asparagus crown waking up from its winter slumber. It's very short winter slumber. I don't see any more doing anything right now, which is not necessarily a bad thing. If we are going to basically have a really early spring, it probably shouldn't set them back too badly. We did amend them pretty well over here, but I don't see any right now. I did notice this rhubarb coming back to life though. That's pretty cool. And we're definitely getting some green things happening on our elderberry plants. All of our elderberry trees survived the freeze, and all of them are going to get really big this year. There's a horse and buggy coming by. I want to show you so badly, but it's not proper to film the Amish. Hopefully it came up on camera and you heard it. It's pretty cool. So all of the elderberry bushes are alive. We have, I think, 9 different elderberry plants, 3 different varieties, and we should have lots of elderberry this year. This side of the raised bed garden looks kind of crazy. Part of that is I didn't really manage my blackberries super closely this year, and they have gone all over the place. And this is another thing where usually blackberries are touted as invasive. I can see why. I can't say that I'm loving what's happening here necessarily, but it's my own fault. However, this isn't the worst situation. So the blackberries are in this side of the U-shaped bed. They're slowly creeping around to the other side, but they've also spilled over the side of the bed and actually rooted in the ground over here. And I have nothing else going on over here, so more blackberries it is. And if I didn't mention it before, these are thornless, so they're definitely allowed to go kind of crazy. And here's our garlic, doing garlicky things. Looks real good. So the sun is going down, so I'm gonna go inside for now, but I think tomorrow we're gonna do a little bit of planting. So originally, when I made my very rough garden plan, I had decided that I wasn't going to grow anything that I could get at our local Amish store. And usually I can get things like onions, I can get carrots, potatoes, I can get a couple different varieties of lettuces. And so I wasn't going to grow any of those things. But my kids put together their own garden plan, and how can you say no to this face? So Shaika wants to grow carrots and radishes, and radishes are a really good little crop for us to grow here. There's a really fast turnaround on radishes. This particular variety, this watermelon radish, does take a little bit longer than like your standard little red globe radish. This will take around 60 days, while those radishes, they can mature in as fast as 20 days. both of these are actually really fun to grow, and we've grown these little parisan carrots before. They're really fun to ferment, and they're really fun to roast. So that's going to be the goal for these. And I did actually decide that I was going to go ahead and start 2 pots here of a lettuce mix. This is my favorite lettuce mix from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. And honestly, lettuces have been very expensive in the last couple years. And we're going to be participating in $50 February coming up. I'll give you guys more details on that as February gets closer and closer. But being able to grow our own lettuces instead of buying them is going to save us a lot of money, as it does anyway. So Shika has decided he would like to plant the radishes first. And these get kind of large. They can be 2 to 4 inches in diameter. So we're not going to fit too many in our pot here, but it will be plenty for him. See all the seeds down there? See them?
Wow.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
So only do two in each one?
Yeah, you're going to put 2 in each hole so that we can make sure that we do get something coming up in each hole. So usually when we plant basically anything, I'll add more than 1 seed per planting hole just to make sure if I have a little bit less than 100% germination, which usually is the case. We never get 100% germination, but we can ensure that we can get something coming up in each planting hole. And if need be, we can cut some back. So I've got our planting holes about a 1/2 inch deep. You can put 2 per hole. Now what I've got in these pots here is actually a garden soil mixed with perlite. I had a lot of leftover garden soil from last year's garden when I amended the raised beds. But really the garden soil by itself is too heavy. It's too dense for containers. So I'm able to cut the garden soil with a little bit of perlite or horticultural vermiculite. It really adds to kind of the aeration of the soil. It lightens it up a lot and it makes it better for little seedlings and little roots to grab onto.
I guess that was more than we needed.
Yeah, I can put them back in.
Do you have to squish it down?
Yeah, you're doing perfectly. Yep.
Ew. Just got my nose shirt dirty.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So carrots are a little bit different. They can be kind of finicky with their germination. I saw a really cool tip one time where you mix together cornstarch and water and the carrot seed and made this slurry of sorts in a plastic bag, cut the little corner off of the plastic bag, and essentially pipe out the rows of carrots. And that did work really well for me. I didn't get much of a harvest because the rodents ate all of my carrots. This was the beginning of last year, but the germination worked really well with that method. They're really tiny.
Oh, it's teeny.
Yeah, carrot seeds are really tiny. And because of that, they really shouldn't go super deep. And I like to plant the carrots and the lettuces in the same way. And basically, I'm just gonna broadcast them on top of the soil and kind of ruffle them in.
A big pinch.
Yep, and you just sprinkle them on like that. So I'll do this half and you can do the other half, okay? Spread it all around. When these germinate, you're gonna be able to tell whose half is whose. Yours are going to be very densely planted, aren't they?
Yeah.
One of the important things with carrots is you want to make sure that they don't dry out. Drying out is going to be a death sentence for these guys, and so I'm going to have to watch them a little bit closely. Okay. Woo. So now that we got them all sprinkled on, I'm just going to rough up the surface of the soil a little bit and make sure that they are all worked in. So I'm gonna be right back, okay? I need to go get the thing out of the barn.
The pump thing?
Yes, my pump sprayer. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
With really little seeds that are, especially ones that are broadcast on the top of the soil, it can be very easy to displace them when you water them with a regular watering can. Even if the watering can has one of these little things on the top, they can be too much for seedlings. So I really like this pump sprayer. It has some different settings on it. It might actually be, yeah, it's on laser setting, so. There. Whoop. So this is what we're after, and I'm just gonna wet the top of the soil. This is a nice, gentle way to water very tiny seeds. So these next 2 pots here, these window boxes. These are gonna be for the lettuce mix that we have. And we're gonna do the same thing that we did with the carrots. The important thing for most lettuces is they do need light to germinate. See, the different varieties have different colors of seed. It's pretty cool. And we're gonna do the same exact thing, okay? We have way overseeded this little thing, but that's all right. There, we're just gonna ruffle it up.
This is fun.
And then pack it down a little. Very good, much better. So all of these are planted. I'm gonna make it part of my morning chore routine to come in here and make sure that everything is well watered still. And because it is kind of cold out still during the day and especially at night, these are gonna take a little bit longer to germinate, but that's okay. I'm still finalizing my spring and summer garden plans. And one of the things that I'm trying to consider is that we have a very wet, very humid spring and summer most of the time. This last summer was actually pretty dry and very, very hot. We like to grow a lot of things and eat a lot of things that grow on vines, things that like to ramble, things that need a lot of space. And originally I thought that I was going to be putting those kinds of things in here, like melons and squash and cucumbers, things like that. And as I'm getting closer to planting season, I'm wondering if that is not the best idea. So our greenhouse is a low sidewall, high tunnel. I actually don't know if this one technically qualifies as a high tunnel. I think it does because you can walk in it, but don't quote me on that. But still, it only has the 3-foot sidewalls, and because of that, it doesn't have the best ventilation. I do have one ventilation fan over there. I want to put another one on this side, and we do have the passive ventilation vents that you see up there. But even still, it gets so humid in here that I think that maybe this is not the best spot to put things that may be more prone to getting things like powdery mildew. We did experience a little bit of powdery mildew in here when I grew the tromboncino squash in the center aisle last year, at the end of last year. And that was fine at the time because we were really approaching our first frost and I knew those plants didn't have long anyway. But when it comes to planting something in the beginning of the season, I really want to try to lengthen the life of that plant as much as possible. And I don't think that this is the best environment for something like that. Is the floor wet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because it rained.
Because it rained. So the way that our land works, it doesn't matter if you have a shade or a cover over something. When it rains, the ground is going to suck all of that water in, and it's going to basically be like it rained indoors. Our barn used to be this way. We worked really hard to elevate the floor of the barn with manure and with bedding. And right now the barn doesn't do that anymore, which is good. But I really don't mind it in this situation because it means that our greenhouse plants don't miss out on the soluble nitrogens that are in rainwater. They don't get the rain on top of them and they don't get the rain on the leaves, but when it does rain, it absolutely soaks all the way through this greenhouse. But it's this kind of thing, this wetness, that is continually reminding me that it's probably not the best place to plant like cucurbit plants. Melons, cucumbers, things like that. So I have an alternate plan and I'm kind of excited about it. So over here, in between these two pastures, this is our chicken run and this is one of our buck pens. We have a space in between most of our pastures of at least 15 feet. And the reason for that is so we can get a tractor through, and also so if I have 2 different breeding bucks in these 2 separate pens, that space is gonna make it so they don't fight through the fence over their ladies. Truth be told, I don't really need this lane for the tractor. If we have to get the tractor back here, we can go all the way around and that's no problem at all. The tractor barely has to come back here anyway. And so I actually think I'm gonna use this lane to grow some plants. So this lane here is 100 feet long. And that is a lot of space, even for just one row. In the greenhouse, we have 3 rows that are 30 feet long. So it's as if half of the greenhouse would be, you know, planted out here because half of the greenhouse is 90 feet. So, goodness, It's a lot of space, but I think it's going to be kind of necessary because usually the rambling plants do need a lot of space. They are going to be trellised. So the plan right now, loosely planned in my head, is to put down 2 rows or 2 sections of weed fabric side by side. I'm gonna have to mow around the outside edge, and it's all going to have T-posts and fencing for a trellis. So the plants really won't ramble too much. They're going to be up on the trellis, and I think it's gonna be really cool. Loofah, that's something I wanna grow. And this water spigot here, this is what I can use to water that 100-foot lane. So let me know what you think of that. Let me know if you have any ideas or of anything that you'd like to see us grow, something that you really love and really enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around. Planting season, the real planting season, is just around the corner.